everybody, we're at NAMM 2018, or 2018 as I keep getting told. We're actually at the SAE Electronics booth. Hope you're having a marvelous time. We're going to do Fact Friday, we're going to do a giveaway, we're going to interview some people, you name it. It's going to be a fun-packed blah, blah, blah amount of minutes. All right, we're here at the Vintage King booth, and it is freaking busy. It's a busy thing on National Busy Day.
It is.
I'm talking to Bill, Spectra Sonics.
Nice
How
to
are
meet
you, my friend?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
Because those of you that follow me know that every guitar I record goes through a 610. It's just kind of there. It's my preferred chain. In fact, it's on all the acoustics, it's on all the electrics. And it has, and people will hate this word, and I'm sorry, maybe you can define it better, but it has a sort of a sponginess that I love that makes me feel the 70s. I grew up listening to New York bass records and a lot of Southern records. And when I did an album with Jack Douglas, he told me, oh, it's because we used to use Spectra Sonics stuff. So that's how we got it, because we used it in 2011 on the Aerosmith record.
Right.
So anyway, I'll stop talking. Tell me
about
about
what we do is we really concentrate on reproducing the harmonics. So during overload, you do lose a lot of harmonic content, and we preserve that. Our big deal is whatever comes in the input goes on the output. We don't have a signature. We don't try and add things. We don't try and subtract things. We just reproduce what's on the input wave.
Well, you certainly add something, even if it's not deliberate.
Or it's the things you may be losing too, you know.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Okay.
On a kick and snare, all of a sudden you hear the extended harmonics. The frequency response stays the same through the whole harmonic. So that's what we try and process, is not to change. The input and the output stay the same.
Tell me about this, because you have some good history on this.
Yeah, we stayed out of the 500 business for quite a few years, and then we finally, through questions, phone calls, we created a box. It's the same circuit essentially as what was in the stacks, 1966, 67.
We like that.
Ardent, Advision, which is your early Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Yes.
Like that too.
Bowie. That was the circuit. So what
These
we did.
catchphrases I love.
That was the circuit that was used on those recordings, and so what we've got is it either operates as a pre by itself, or you can snap on the 2-band EQ, which was used to be referred to as the 500. But it's a passive unit, so it ties to the pre. But the big thing about this pre is it doesn't have any peak overload issues like our other gear. So above RMS, you've got 20 to 22 dB of headroom. So when you do a track like a mic, a drum, or a kick or a snare, you have the continuous waveform. It doesn't clip. The other thing about it, which is unique, is that it doesn't draw much power. It's less than 45 mils. That's it. So you don't have power supply issues in the 500 chassis itself. But the big point is it sounds just like our desks, our big ones.
Right.
When we did the testing on it, we did a double blind test between our pre's and our actual console, and there's no sonic difference.
That's pretty amazing.
So for less than $1,000 for the mic pre, you've got essentially the performance of a Spectra Sonics desk.
That's great.
Easy to use.
We're being filmed. We're filming the filming.
So anyway, that's the whole idea behind it, is that anybody can afford a Spectra sound.
So what's this going for?
$945.
Great.
EQ is $645.
Nice. You want to do a giveaway on one of these?
I will be doing that.
Did you hear that, everybody? We're going to do a giveaway on this. I'm a huge fan. I wish I could have more of your stuff. Maybe we'll have to come to some kind of arrangement here.
I'm sure we can.
Yeah. You know, I talk about this all the time, but growing up in England, all of us in England wanted to sound like Americans, and it seemed like all the Americans wanted to sound like the Englishmen. But as Mike Bloomfield said, the English, or the British took American music and sold it back to the Americans. And I found, you know, especially talking to you, Drax, so many of the great recordings he made use your stuff, so.
Yeah,
very excited.
You know, that's been our problem, is to actually document what those recordings are, but as we dig more and more into it, we find out like a record plant was prolific.
Well, that's where Jack lived. He made all his albums at the record plant.
All the Lennon stuff, all the early Aerosmith stuff was all Spectra.
That was all Jack.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, great. So we're going to do a raffle, a giveaway on this incredibly beautiful pre. You'll know there'll be links and stuff flying around. You'll know what to do. Very, very excited. Anything else new you want to talk about?
This is the new old 610. What we did was this design came out in '69. This look.
Yep. Awesome.
It went away in '80. we brought it back. So the big knobs,
Yep.
the API looking meter. So now we've got the 610 looking like it originally looked like. So we call it 610C, which is the 610 Classic.
Nice. Wonderful. What's the V?
The V is the mastering piece. It's been out for about a year and a half, 2 years.
Great.
The big thing about this same circuit internally, it's just all the Elma switching for recall.
Great.
Plus 24 out. But the big thing is the mastering guys have really gone crazy over this box because of the headroom it provides. They use it in the front of the chain. So the first thing that comes through the chain is the V610. It's a limiter.
Great.
Everything that follows it has the headroom.
Wonderful.
So we've probably got about 20, 30 houses now, mastering guys that have gone to this piece.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Guys like Pete Lyman.
Pete, we love Pete.
Yeah.
Does great work.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
good. Well, thanks.
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you, Bill.
Good to see you again, sir.
JJ, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Now, every time I see you at one of these shows, I say, hey, let's come to your studio and do a studio tour.
Yeah, and we don't.
So let's do it.
Let's do that.
Let's do it next week.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Next week would be perfect.
Can I tell you, JJ has probably, arguably, one of the best collections of gear of anybody I've ever met in the history of gear.
Microphones, I'll say yes, but
You still have that beautiful console?
Yeah, we're here at Rupert Neve because they're gonna make me another console.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. I came to give them a deposit check.
Really?
Really.
Well, there you go. That's
So,
pretty darn amazing.
Yeah.
Now you have
And
a
you know
lot,
what? And you
lot
know
of
what?
great albums.
They have the other thing. This is the key to NAMM.
Hand sanitizer.
And they have that.
There's a lot of shaking hands and kissing babies.
Yeah. A lot of shaking hands with sketchy people.
I know. I'm sorry. What can I say?
No, not you. It's like these. It's these guitar salesmen. You know,
Guitar salesmen.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
they're
tip
dodgy.
for NAMM visitors: avoid guitar salesmen.
Yes.
Straight from the horse's mouth. So I was going to say what you were here to do, and you've already told me you came here to put a deposit on a console.
Yes, I did.
How many channels?
32.
Lovely.
Yeah. Excited. So I'm building a new room, and that's what's going to go in it. And,
Oh wow! Is this in a different location from your place?
It's an extension, so I'll have 2 rooms.
Lovely.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll come by next week.
I
and
would
we'll
love that.
do
I would love that.
studio tour.
You good?
I'm good.
Yeah.
We're working our proverbial you-know-what's off. Yeah, it's just
Good.
nuts at the moment.
Work is great.
It's quality problems.
And here's tip for your viewers: work gets you work. Always never say no to work.
Work begets work, yes. Yeah. All right, well, great to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
And I'll
mate.
see you next week.
Yeah.
All right, so part of Fact Friday, we're going to do the Ask Me the Question You've Always Wanted to Ask Me. Austin, what's the question?
If you could go back to any successful artist or any artist you've recorded with and redo a session or album, which artist or album would that be and why?
Wow. That's a really, really good question.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to say the
Because you always move on, right? You're always developing.
No, is go back and do something I've already done myself?
Yeah, like maybe like, oh, I learned a new technique years later. Can I go back and apply that to an old project?
I think the
Maybe.
problem with learning, this is a horrible answer, but it's the truth. The problem with us when we're learning is you feel that about every project.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
I know somebody that I admire that would say, oh yeah, it was absolutely amazing. I think the guy that says that isn't good. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I think if you went and asked Eddie Kramer that question, he'd probably go, oh, you know, the Hendrix song, I wish I had done that. I think every good guy is going to say that.
Yeah.
So that's a really tough one. I mean, like, I feel like everything, like, every album came through my mind, like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. You know, I was thinking about the Frey's second album. Like, I spent a lot of time on Enough for Now, which was my favorite song on the record. I think it's the best song on the album. And then I look at a couple of other songs and go, oh, I could have spent more time on that. Maybe I spent too much time on it. So I think that's such a difficult question to
Yeah, it
answer.
is. It's kind of like, when is the painting done? You know, it's just when
Yeah.
it feels right, or when is it done? Just
I read something years ago that Elton John was putting background ideas down at mastering. I don't remember what song it was, but he went to the mastering and he's like, I hear a harmony. And they're like, yeah? And they bring in a mic and they, plug in a mic pre and he does an overdub. He said the 2 tracks
Just throw it in.
and just blend it in.
That's very cool. Thank you.
And he's Elton frickin' John. I'm hardly that, but I think that's all of us that when we do this. We're never really satisfied, and we always want to make it better.
Exactly.
And I think that's a good trait. I mean, obviously, you've got to know how to learn when to let go, but at the same time, yeah.
Very cool.
Great question.
Thank you.
All right, Justin, you're up.
What is your favorite process working on drums? It could be editing, could be tracking. What's your favorite part about working with drums?
Well, the best thing, the great thing is drums is my favorite thing to do.
Exactly. Mine
By
too.
far. I mean, we get loads of different mics. We can make the drum sound with one mic. You know, what I like is when I can go to a studio that has a massive mic selection and a console with all the same pre. Because I find that when we're in those situations, you've got one preamp and it's a well-maintained console. Every transient's hitting at the same rate, and it feels like the phases and the polarity is coherent, and the drums are in your face. I had the privilege of recording at Conway a few years ago, and their room, they have the Montserrat console that George Martin had built with all the mic pre's in the wall. And that is the best drum sound I've ever got in my life. Because every time somebody hit a drum, everything just went bah, just came out. And I gave it to Mark Ender to mix, and he's just like, this is the best drum sound, how did you do it? And I was at Conway, and he goes, my best drum sound I ever got was at Conway.
Got you, right on.
And so I think that's like, if you can, somebody says, what's your favorite thing? When you get to go to an amazing room with a beautiful console.
Excellent.
And I love it, you know. And also when you're in a beautiful console in a big room, you have a choice of like 50 different ways of micing the kit. And when you come to mix, you can solo one mic and go, there's a drum sound. Absolutely. You can solo a kick and a snare and two overheads and say, there's a drum sound. You know.
Nice.
Not that I don't love throwing up 4 mics in a tiny room.
Right.
But gun to my head, there's nothing better than a huge room to track drums in.
Right on. Excellent.
Great question.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Pedro, you're up.
All right. My next question was, I saw a YouTube video of you comparing consoles to like cheaper gear. My question was, do you like to record drums on a big console and then guitar on like in a different studio? Like, how does that process work? Do you do everything in one studio, or do you like to just do drums on a console and then guitar, you know, like through a Focusrite interface, like small one? Or just wondering, like, what's the best you've achieved? Like, because that video, like, you know, I saw the cheaper gear and it just sounded like higher frequencies, you know, while the consoles gave warmer sound. I'm just wondering, when do you feel like, okay, hey, this is too warm, and then now I just want to like go to the different studio to record.
Great question. I think it's about workflow.
Right.
Going back to what we're talking about with the drum stuff, if I'm in a large studio with a decent sized live room and all the musicians are there, it's that whole experience and that sound of that whole room.
Right.
And it's very difficult because there is not those kind of budgets anymore. Even with studios dropping their prices, getting into a great studio for 6 weeks to make an album like we used to just 10, 15 years ago, I mean, those are, you know, you just spend a couple $100 grand.
Right.
And there's not really those budgets for rock records. So necessity is the mother of invention. I think that we go to those rooms, we track the basics, and then you can come home and do overdubs.
Yeah.
But of course, I can do the record in my home studio quite easily.
Exactly.
But given the choice, I would much prefer the idea of going to work.
Yeah.
You go to work to a beautiful studio. You have a guy or a girl that's assisting you, setting up the mics, who knows the room, and it induces creativity. Then the musicians come in, the producer, the engineer, everybody's just there to create. So all I try to do when I'm recording in smaller environments is try to recreate that feeling. Like I always have an engineer. Yes, I engineer, the settings are maybe mine, their mics are mine, the mic placement, but
It's a team.
Eric is sitting there and he's running Pro Tools and he's getting levels so that the artist can spend more time interacting with me. Now, it took me time to do that. I made many records, just me and a laptop and me and ADATs.
Right.
But I think ultimately you can get the same results with your inexpensive gear.
Yeah.
The bigger portion of it is not so much the gear, but more about
The player.
the player and how you interact and that atmosphere that you create. So even if it's just you with the equipment, still try to take yourself out of just being in the screen. Because we all get like, yeah, do it again.
Yeah.
No, you got to make it tighter.
Right.
That was out of tune. You know,
Right.
try to Try to be so familiar with your tools that you can be like, hey man, that was great. I love what you did. You bent the note there. That was beautiful. Why don't you try it again on the second verse? You know, try to get out of the box and into like, you know, getting a performance out of the artist. Because I think we end up relying on gridding and tuning and timing stuff because we're not getting performances. And it's not always the artist's fault. It's sometimes quite a lot my fault because I'm not getting it out of them.
Gotcha.
So I don't mind the limitations as long as you take the bigger mindset.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Hey.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pedro.
Yeah.
Matt Boudreau, as I live and breathe.
Hey, man.
I'm good, how are you?
I'm great.
I listened to your Eddie Kramer one.
Yeah.
And then a day later I put my video out.
I know.
And I shot the video like weeks before.
Yeah.
And we had so many, sorry everybody.
He's
We
a
had-
riot.
He's amazing. We had so many audio issues with ours.
Oh.
We had dropouts and stuff, so. But yours was amazing.
Oh.
I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
So if you don't subscribe to Working Class Audio,
Please
you're missing
do.
out.
Yeah, workingclassaudio.com. Yeah.
Go to it,
Come on
subscribe
over.
it. Best podcast out there, bar none.
Oh, thank you, man.
Yep. So it's a lot of fun. Are you having? I mean, what have you been doing? I mean, we've only been at like 3 hours. So.
I know. I've been wandering. Yeah, and trying to navigate the in and the out.
What is with them putting it in a different building?
Well, and it's complicated because Pro Audio is spread around,
Yeah.
and so you got to learn the trick. You got to stay inside, otherwise you get stuck outside, and you got to go through
Back through security again.
back through security again.
That already happened to me.
I appreciate the security safety aspect of
Me
it.
too.
But at the same time, it's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yes.
So
Well, we noticed you could actually leave one building, get into this one in security, but to get back in the other building, you didn't have to go through security if you went in the same door you came out.
interesting. I haven't learned that.
Loophole in the system there.
Yes.
But anyway, you're having fun.
I'm having a great time.
Marvelous.
I get to see all my friends.
Yeah, it's good. We need to do more together.
I know, we always say that, but we just have to, we're busy.
Well, we're both doing some stuff at Mac DSP, so why don't we do something with them?
We should do that.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Great
Because
to
we're both going to see them and we'll just make something happen.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, they're good people. Colin is good people. And you're an old friend of Colin's, aren't you?
High school friend of Colin's.
Yeah?
Yeah. He was a year ahead of me in high school.
Wow.
Yeah. We used to play on stages at, same places.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, well, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks. Excellent. We're back. We're big, we're bad, we're back. Hi. Stephen, did you have a question for me?
Yes, I do. Warren, could you maybe tell us a difficult time you had, I guess, early on in your career when mixing for a client?
Oh, I got so many of those. Maybe I still have some. I feel like the biggest thing that I had to overcome, and I still find is the most important, is we're mixing rock in particular. Let's just stick. When I mean rock, I don't necessarily mean death metal. I just mean like rock bands. Is getting that energy right in the drums. I still battle it, and I remember maybe doing, I don't know, 10 or 12 revisions on one mix early in my career that was all based on the snare drum. And it wasn't just about like boosting 7K, making it brighter or darker, like getting the snare drum sound. I mean, and ultimately what I came to realize was the drums just weren't recorded the way they wanted it to be. And so mixing became this kind of like fixing it. So I learned when I'm tracking my own stuff is to commit as close as I can to the sound that I want. So that when I'm coming to mix it, I might just be like adding maybe something to make it more so, but I've got to get it right in the tracking first. Because whatever you do with samples, it's always going to end up sounding like samples.
Yes.
Now don't get me wrong, there's a lot of dynamics that can be reintroduced. But if you can get it right at source, that's the best way to go. But I still have sleepless nights remembering a time, like spending 3 days trying to get a snare sound right.
Yeah.
So pretty scary.
No, yeah, I just going through a similar thing, and I used your sample pack
Great.
that you gave out to really just tuck it in and try to
Excellent.
improve that for a client of mine. So, thank
That's
you.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
Yeah.
Great
that's
question.
it. Uh-huh.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks. You getting this on tape?
The camera just shut off. That's weird. Just all of a sudden.
As soon as I started moving?
Yeah. Right when you get in front of it, it just quit working. We're rolling.
You ready to rock?
We're rolling.
Are we rolling? Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Are you good?
Warren, I'm great.
I'm going to give you this microphone to hold. Look at that.
I can hold
See
this.
what I did? See what I did? I dumped it. let's face it, a lot of guys are in situations where they've got an idea. It happens to me all the time, and you put it down and you don't have your Marshall stack going. You don't even have an ability to record really, really well.
Right.
And then you got your DI track printed where you got your amp sim, but you want to put it back out through an amp. And you guys make a box called a Re-Amp.
We do.
Which will help us out. So can you tell us a little bit about this one? It's got a lot of features on it.
Absolutely. So this particular Re-Amper is called the X-Amp. It's our flagship Re-Amper. It's an active unit, so it takes an external power supply. What one typically does is they take their pre-recorded dry track from their interface and they'll input it here on the XLR, power connection here, and then at the output you have your instrument level output to go to 1 amp or 2 amps if you have. So you can go to an amp and then you can go to effects pedals and then your amplifier. You have transformer isolation on your output too, as well as a polarity inverse switch so that if you have any older amps that are maybe out of phase and you're trying to mic up 2 amps simultaneously, you can match those 2 up to create nice big thick tones.
That's nice.
Also a level control so that you can fine tune the level that's going to the input of the amp so that you're not getting any distortion on the input.
That's really nice. That's nice on the being able to flip the polarity there, because I have pedals, like old vintage pedals, that it comes in one polarity and comes out the other.
Right.
And you don't even realize that you're tracking guitars and you put a pedal in, and you're right, you've got 2 amps and you're miking 2 amps, and suddenly your guitar sound goes to absolute pot, and you realize that this pedal you just engaged flipped the polarity on the stereo, whatever, yeah.
Right,
So
of course.
that's smart, I like that. Very nice. And like all radial stuff, it's built like a proverbial brick. You know what we're going to say. Really heavy, well made, really great, made in Canada. But you know what the best thing about this? Oh, ground lift. Is we're giving one of these away, courtesy of these lovely gentlemen here. So, you're going to see a link going down there, you're going to enter and you can win this. It's a good first day at NAMM, I'm very happy.
Good stuff. Thanks for stopping by, Warren.
Thanks, Ryan, I really appreciate it.
On the spot question is, whenever you are doing distorted guitar tones, whenever you're dealing with distorted guitar tones,
yep,
how is it that you go about keeping all of that extra hiss and harshness out of the mix without tearing apart the guitar?
Well, first of all, are you talking about recording a guitar with a mic?
With a microphone.
Okay, cool. Because obviously there's that certain grit and noise that gets from plugins and everybody. Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, start at the beginning. Like, go to the amp. I personally, and Cameron Webb and Bob Marley, all these big rock guys, Auric Wild, good friends of mine that you see on the channel. When dealing with Marshalls in particular, we boost the presence more than we boost the treble.
Very true.
So, first thing then, go to the amp, maybe see, oh, the treble's a bit hot, pull that down. Next thing, go to your mic.
Okay.
Maybe take it off the center of the current, it's a little bright. It's sort of like incremental.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, amp first, mic placement second, then go to your mic pre. The thing about distorted guitars, because they're distorted, often, and I've done this many times myself, I'm driving my mic pre too hard. Okay. It's already distorted. I don't need to add a little extra crunch. When I use my 1073 or whatever, normally on things like vocals and certain guitar tones like cleaner tones and basses even sometimes, I might go 1 click into the red, like just make it a little crunchy. With heavy guitars, I don't need that. I don't need that extra.
Yeah.
So, starting from the beginning, maybe just dial back a bit of treble on the amp. Then maybe move the mic out from the dust cover just a little bit, so it's a little bit more on the outside of the cone. Not straight about on the outside, but a little bit more away. Then make sure my pre isn't driving and adding some extra top. I don't want to add any EQ. Most rock guys, like my favorite rock guys like Dave Jordan, never added EQ anywhere on guitars until they got to the SSL to mix.
Okay.
They just recorded absolutely flat. So it was all that kind of thing. So ultimately, it's about the recording. Now, when you come to mix, if they still sound like so bright and disgusting, try a less is more approach. Try some of the tape emulations and simulations.
Okay.
Try like Mac DSP analog channel. Try things that kind of warm it up, but don't actually EQ it.
Yeah.
Because all you're really trying to do, for instance, when you sit in a room with Chris Ordalgi or Michael Brower or any of these mixers that use a lot of analog,
Yeah.
they're passing the guitar tone through all this signal
constantly warming it up.
Yeah, and you're looking at it, you're like, there isn't even a needle moving. There's no lights going on, and
Yeah.
yet it seems to come out sounding fatter and warmer. So one of the tricks is to use Manley Verimuse. They just seem to tuck in the top end. There's hardly any movement on the needle, and yet it seems to do it. My point is like, obviously you're not going to have 100 grams worth of gear behind you, so reach for a tape emulation, and maybe on the bias, you know, when you can bias it, do this, like, and just
I have
pull
a
it down.
710 that I usually run it through.
Right.
Universal Audio 710. How can I fatten it up through there? Just turning it all the way to tube, or?
No, I don't think so. I think you'll end up. See, tubes don't actually add what we consider warmth. It's the transformers that they're going through that add that. They add the weight. I like weight. I think weight's a much better way of describing what tubes do. You
That's
can
all I
try.
was thinking in my head.
No, totally. And I think the tubes add like all these extra harmonics that we love.
Yeah.
But when you're recording heavy guitars and you've already got the tone, you're in there and you're like, I like this sound.
Yeah.
Your job not to screw it up. Your job to
yeah.
capture it. So I would say you don't need to drive it any harder there. I think if you can't get the tone from the mic placement, from the amp settings, then try some tape emulation.
Okay.
And going with the bias control, which is basically what you used to do on tape machines. When the top end was fading, they would adjust the bias. I mean, they try to get it flat, but you can abuse it so you can actually like wind down the top end. Find ways of doing it which are more global and more musical sounding than literally going in there with an EQ and just wiping it out. You know, I think tape emulation, analog emulation is the way to go.
All right.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
And sometimes I put like a dirty slap delay underneath there because it just kind of like
takes it up.
Yeah, it takes it up a little bit.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you. Great game, I appreciate it. Here we are, we're at Ultimate, and this is Paul, how are you?
Pretty well, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. So we stopped because we like this. This is a nifty. You said you had a hand in designing this?
Yes, most of the gear that we make these days is based on me getting angry at my own equipment, and then I start drawing things on napkins, and I take it, and I'm like, hey, you guys, and the engineers start developing a thing.
Right.
And I was using, I had a lot of Electron gear and things like that, and I wanted my other gear to fit with it. There was nothing online, so one night I just started feverishly doodling, ran into the engineers, and had the idea for an open source system that would work in those. All the other ones are proprietary, so we wanted something that could work with anything anyone wanted.
So it's a great idea. It's really obviously simple, and I don't know why nobody else has done it. In fact, and thank goodness you did. It's like, it just adjusts to your equipment.
It has
very smart.
The optional little divider there actually keeps everything stuck in, so it's all secured. And then on the back, there's a clamp that you use to tighten everything in so it's all securely held, and that way it's perfect for live and studio use with whatever your favorite babies are.
Great. And what are these retailing at?
Retail, single unit is $59, and then the or $59.99, and then the little expansion unit is $19.99. So for $140, it's a permanent 2-tier solution altogether. Great. And that's the MDS 100 from Ultimate Support.
I love it. I love the idea. Good, simple, practical.
Excellent. Well, thanks for talking to us about it.
Thanks. All righty. How are you, Zach?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
With a great name,
Yes.
Bloomstein. I mean, come on.
Yes.
That is the coolest name ever. What is the question you'd like to ask?
I wanted to ask you, if you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
Lose the ego and stop being so insecure. There you go.
I love
That's
that.
it.
Okay.
That really is it, because like the older you get, you realize that. You're like, because somebody plays something, an idea, you can't figure out how it works. That's my fault for not understanding what they're trying to say.
Yeah.
But so when I was younger, I used to be a little abrasive and be like, oh, it doesn't work. And now I listen to some of those ideas I dismissed, and I'm like, oh, they were so good. They just weren't in my sphere of understanding. But it was my insecurity and my ego that got in the way.
I like that. Thank you.
Yeah.